But the role last night was really to provide hope, joy, and maybe grab a few swing voters along the way. Was it vibe heavy, policy light for you? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Manus. I think that's fair. I do think the speech, to me, was broken into four parts. Number one, introducing herself to the American people. We have the saying, you can't introduce yourself for the first time twice, but that's really what she's trying to do here. And what we've seen since she's ascended to the top of the ticket, her favorability ratings have gone up. If you like someone, you're more likely to vote for them. Number two, prosecuting that case against Trump. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Third, outlining a little bit more of her domestic agenda. You highlighted the fact that she did not talk about price gouging, FTC. I think that was some of the most controversial parts of what she outlined, and that's where Republicans have attacked her. So not terribly surprised that she shied away from that a little bit. But was probably the most striking to me was the fourth part, was Kamala Harris as potential commander-in-chief, really outlining her views on international policy and kind of giving a strong and forceful address saying how she would be different from Donald Trump, as well as how she would rule kind of her administration on these kind of really important geopolitical issues, especially a really important portion related to the current war between Israel and Hamas.
Well, let's just unpack some of that. Can we just sort of step back for one moment? At the start of this summer, we were talking about a Republican sweep, Republican Trump trades. It was pervasive. Now, nobody is really sort of talking about a Democratic sweep. Is that folly? I mean, they're playing themselves as being the underdogs. We are the underdogs, and we've got a lot of work to do. So we've pivoted from red sweep to timeout, and let's rethink. How do you see the positioning for the Democrats? She's got velocity and momentum, but can that translate to something more than just the presidency for her?
Manus, that's a really important point. At the beginning of the year here at Raymond James, what we told our clients was prepare for a sweep, not necessarily a Republican versus Democratic sweep, but when you add up the odds, we thought the most likely outcome is a sweep one way or another.
Right.
When everyone was thinking that the most likely outcome was divided government. And the reason for that is that, these elections tend to have a little bit of momentum one way or another. You talked about the Republican sweep, but it is important to talk about the potential Democratic sweep. When you have a sweep, you unlock reconciliation. And reconciliation is one of those things that people's eyes glaze over and say, oh, that's technical. You don't really can do all that much, except for every single major policy change in the last 30 years in our country has almost exclusively been done through reconciliation. And then you look ahead and say, all right, starting January 1st, we restart the debt limit. December 31st, we have the expiration of almost $5 trillion worth of tax cuts. If there were to be a Democratic or Republican sweep, you could have directionally kind of the most kind of wide kind of changes in our government's history. And I think from my perspective, my job as a Washington policy analyst is trying to bookend that risk. And so in divided government, that bookend is close. In a sweep, it's really wide. And that's where I think if it does look like there's going to be a Democratic sweep, that's where you can get some of the volatility coming here, a Republican sweep as well.
That volatility, if I can sort of squash this down, I know time is a brutal way of doing that. It's around inflation. The accusation from Larry Summers, Adam Posen, is that if it is Trump and if it is a Republican, not just president, but sweep, trade, tariffs, tax, immigration. But the other side of this trade is Harris. I mean, the accusation is interventionist policies, but to what extent is she an inflationista?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think it really depends upon Congress. I mean, if there is going to be a sweep, I think you'd have to look at kind of an increase in the corporate tax rate. I think there's very high probability that most, if not all of those taxes reset. And I think what Democrats would say is that's where taxes go back to where they were under Barack Obama. There'll be concerns because we've seen as much government spending and fiscal stimulus going into the market under the Biden administration. But there's a strange argument to be made that because those taxes reset and Democrats could allow those to go up, that compared to what Trump is calling for with higher tariffs, stricter immigration, higher deficits, are Democrats becoming the party of fiscal responsibility vis-a-vis the policies where we could see a more highly likely second wave of inflation if Trump is elected and he pursues the policies he's saying. It's a lot of flipping of the script in D.C. when we think ahead as to what each party would do after this election.
Look, we're going to get a bunch more polls in 30 seconds. We've got quite a way to run, 70, 80 days until the election. Your base case is not a sweep, but divided government. Can we just square away the probabilities?
Yeah, I think we're in about the most likely scenario still is a Republican sweep, because if Donald Trump wins, I think that he is going to have the House come with them, and it's almost guaranteed for the Senate. And so that's about a 40% probability. And then for a Democratic sweep, it's probably in that 20-25% probability. Divided government is in that remaining 35%. So that's where our base case is sweep either way, and still the highest probability being a Republican sweep, which is counterintuitive when you look at the polls right now.